Stop with the questions. Celebrate.
And then they say, is Donald Trump an intellectual? Trust me, I'm like a smart person. Yosemite's one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Mike Lindell's a conspiracy.
But you haven't. Person, woman, man, camera, TV. They said nobody gets it in order. It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
Amazing.
He can't sit down. He's got a burning in his butthole. He's got a fire. He's got a flame coming out of his butthole.
Big, massive dumps.
Oh, I have a term for that. I call it corporate communism.
Somebody sent me a thing this morning where they're talking about putting the vaccine into salad dressing.
You see, this is a simple meme that you would find on the internet, but this meme is very real.
You ain't seen nothing yet until you see the flaming butthole.
Putting us on our knees to China.
Now witness the firepower of this fully armed and operational battle station.
Nancy Pelosi's gazpacho police.
Out in the nation, Waldorf Nation, welcome to the show, everybody. It's Friday! You've all been waiting for this. I know I certainly have been waiting for this. Yes, it's Friday. Freaking yay. We've got a great show for you today, though, before we head off to the weekend. Look, I know there's still that situation that's going on in Ukraine. It's disastrous. It's pretty terrible. There's a lot going on there. We're not going to talk about that today. I kind of want to leave you off a little bit away from the doom and gloom and try to give you a little bit of interesting news or even possibly good news. This includes fighting back against the Don't Say Gay bill. I love that. That's fantastic. I'm going to make fun of Marjorie Taylor Greene, saying some weirdo stuff. We've got the Roger Stone tapes. I don't know if anybody's covered this today, but I'm going to go in depth into some of the Roger Stone stuff. Very, very interesting. Could have some repercussions. And then, will Biden actually do something about student loans? Now, wait a minute here. You're talking to Mr. Very, very skeptical of Joe Biden. Hold. We may have some encouraging news. Now, of course, I'm going to warn everybody not to get your hopes up too much. But, I mean, that story, that's going to be very interesting. Stay for it. Will there be some student loan debt relief? Interesting. It's a good question. All right. MTG is a weirdo. True. Very, very true. All right. So let's get into it. We're going to start out with Roger Stone. By the way, before we jump into it, please like and share the stream. Very, very important that you do so. Helps a lot. Look, I don't have to tell you that across all of YouTube, I think a lot of people have tuned out from politics, and so view counts are a little bit lower. So please like and share the stream. Helps out greatly to increase the reach there. And so that said, let's do it. Let's go to Roger Stone. Okay. All right. On Friday, the Washington Post dropped a massive report on Trump ally and political advisor Roger Stone. So there's a lot involved in this. It included some descriptions and some videos of an upcoming documentary that Roger Stone had agreed to be in. So basically what he had is this Danish camera crew following him around for a couple of years filming. Interesting. So now in one part of the film, Stone is seen getting out of the Capitol while the riots are going on, packing his suitcase. From the report, as the mob ransacked the Capitol on January 6, 2021, Stone hurried to pack his suitcase inside his elegant suite on the 5th floor of the Willard Hotel, which is very near where that was happening, by the way. He wrapped his tailored suits in trash bags, reversed his blackface mask so its Free Roger Stone logo was hidden, and slipped out of town for a hastily arranged private flight from Dulles International Airport. Interesting. So obviously, really, didn't want to be noticed there. Fun. In fact, Stone had told an aide as they were being filmed at the hotel by a Danish camera crew, quote, "I really want to get out of here." Well, that was January 6th. That's when everything was going down. It was a day. And in fact, the day before, he talked about how, oh yeah, I'm going to stand and fight. Yeah, we're going to stand and fight. Nope. Gone. Why? Well, Stone said that he feared prosecution by the incoming Attorney General, Merrick Garland. Stone said, quote, "He is not a friend." No, he's not a friend. Now Merrick Garland, of course, I've talked about how incredibly weak Merrick Garland has been in a lot of situations involving the Capitol riots, involving Trump, involving people related to what happened on January 6th. Nonetheless, he feared Merrick Garland. Imagine that. Okay, now, that said, there's more. Washington Post reporters reviewed more than 20 hours of video filmed for the documentary, A Storm Foretold. I've got a couple of clips from that. That will be released later this year. The footage, along with other reporting by the Washington Post, provides the most comprehensive account of the dates of Stone's involvement in the former president's effort to overturn the election. So that's very important as well. And the rallies in Washington that had spilled over into violence on January 6th. So, Stone has denied, of course, having any involvement in the actual riot. Here's what he said, I believe last year, talking to Newsmax, quote, Let me say this as categorically as I can. Any claim, assertion, implication, or otherwise any accusation that I either knew about or was involved in any of the illegal acts in Washington, D.C. on January 6th is categorically false. There's no evidence to the contrary, and an honest investigation will prove that. And yet, of course, he was like, nope, I gotta get out of here. Nope, I gotta go. So now, why would you fear Merrick Garland coming after you if you didn't do anything wrong? Oh, well, of course, any right-wingers that are watching be like, well, obviously the Democrats are going to do a witch hunt. Duh. Well, now, here's the thing. They say that because Republicans have no problem with launching ridiculous witch hunts. I mean, anybody remember Benghazi or the promises of going after Biden if Republicans retake the House of Representatives following the midterms? Yeah, so there's that. Now, as far as the Democrats are concerned, look, I've said it before, the Democrats are weak and feckless. They don't really ever come after anyone, at least not with, their guns blazing, unless, of course, you're talking about progressives. They love to go after progressives, but they don't really go after the right all that hard. So, now, that said, look, if Roger Stone was involved, and I'm going to lay out some points which definitely show his involvement here, well, that's going to be devastating for him. Devastating. In fact, the report continues. Stone privately coordinated post-election protests, featuring prominent figures, like, for example, Alexander Ali, and in January, communicated by text message with leaders of the far-right groups, including, of course, Oath Keepers, which he had as bodyguards, that had been involved in the attack on the Capitol. The filmmakers did not capture conversations between Stone and Trump, but on several occasions, Stone told them or his associates that he had remained in close contact with the president. And on the day of the attack, of course, he had packed his bags. As he packed his bags, Stone did tell the filmmakers that the riot was a mistake. Quote, "I think it's really bad for the movement. It hurts. It doesn't help." I'm not sure what they thought they were going to achieve. Okay. So now look, there's kind of two different things going on January 6th. There was, of course, the riot, which was very, very obvious. People trying to break into the Capitol, fighting with police, et cetera, et cetera. That was the obvious thing. Now, the other thing was the Green Bay sweep. Now, that's the plan where you had Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro coming out and talking about this, or a lot of other people involved. And it was an effort to pressure Mike Pence to not certify the election. So the idea behind that, of course, was to create a media firestorm around Mike Pence, around the election, after he refuses to certify it. Again, that's just a ceremonial role, and everybody knows that he actually cannot refuse to seat the president who had won. But it didn't matter because you had propaganda around it, and what they wanted to do was create an endless news cycle of propaganda so that they could go out and make a case about mass voter fraud, so-called irregularities, state challenges to the vote count, which were planned to happen and did happen. And of course, all of that was to allow the fake electors that were waiting in the wings to assert, and they had even filed paperwork to the National Archives that we are the real electors and we're going to vote for Donald Trump because of this mass voter fraud. So there's that. And all of this, of course, was an effort, an attempt to hand the presidency over to Trump or essentially do a soft coup. So now, one of the rioters claimed had testified to the FBI that they were a distraction so that the real challenge, the Green Bay sweep, could actually take place. So now, Stone seemed to have been involved in some of that plan. In fact, a day before the announcement that Stone's sentence was commuted, the Danish filmmaker's footage shows that he told his staffer, Enrique Alejandro, that Trump should use the powers of his office to reject the official results in that year's election and secure victory in the courts with help from federal judges who he believed owed them a favor. So that includes Amy Coney Barrett, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, Judge Brett Kavanaugh, and Judge Neil Gorsuch. So they thought, well, we can just go to those conservative judges that were, Heritage Foundation choices, and, well, they'll back me. They'll back me. Now, again, that was never guaranteed, but that was the thought process behind this. So, now, that said, there's more here. On July 9th, 2020, to show you how long they had been planning this, Stone told the filmmakers at his home, quote, "It's going to be really nasty." He predicted that the Democrats would try to steal the election, which is ironic, of course, because they were the ones trying to steal the election, and said that if the electors show up at the Electoral College, armed guards will be there to throw them out. Interesting. Very interesting. Now, the other thing, and this is one of the videos that have been released so far. Well, Stone had been coordinating a whole bunch of calls. And this is all related to, again, the Stop the Steal. This is stuff that was on November 5th. Okay? So now, let me give you some video of that. Take a look.
Just monitor the news for the most egregious examples of vote stealing of any type. Ballots found in trash, ballots found in dumpster, ballots burned, suitcases brought into the anything you can find and send us the links. We are relaunching Stop the Steal. We're going to raise money for Stop the Steal. It'll be like falling off a log.
All right, so that's actually a different date. That was on January 6th, of course, that had happened. Nonetheless, that had coincided with Trump Jr., other accounts, tweeting out with the hashtag Stop the Steal. So they had all kind of worked together to try to show that, hey, look, there's so much voter fraud here, so much election fraud, and you know, that's why we need to reverse the decision. Okay. So now the other thing that they said was that Stone had advised Trump that, yes, let's take power, let's use the courts. Thankfully, that did not happen. Now, there was another thing. Now, Stone had drawn up a Stop the Steal action plan. This was earlier. And so now that action plan was visible on Alejandro's laptop, according to footage captured by the filmmakers. As the protesters were mobilized, the plan said state lawmakers would be lobbied to reject official results. The tactic proved central later on to Trump's efforts. Lobbied by fake electors, court challenges, all of that. Stone also had a 15-minute call with Michael Flynn. The video shows he had told Flynn that they could document an overwhelming and compelling fraud in each battleground state and urged them to spread the word on social media. That day, Trump's campaign and his sons Donald Jr. and Eric began using the hashtag Stop the Steal on Twitter. And again, this is after Stone had claimed that he had not been a participant in any of the organizations using the name or phrase Stop the Steal in 2020. Stone was also filmed and photographed with a Capitol rioter, Ali Alexander, actually one of the organizers involved in the rally turned riot. And on the evening of January 5th, Stone had appeared at the Rally to Save America on Freedom Plaza near the Willard while being guarded by multiple Oath Keepers, two of which, who were with Stone, Joshua James and Brian Ulrich, were later charged with sedition conspiracy after allegedly storming the Capitol. James pleaded guilty this week and agreed to cooperate with federal prosecutors. A third, Mark Grodz, admitted in a plea deal that he had traveled to the D.C. area from Alabama with weapons, 2 guns, and joined fellow members in the Capitol riot. So now that was on the 5th. What happened on the 6th? Now, he said he was going to be there, right? Well, apparently he wasn't. Now, there's a couple of reasons. One of them is that he and Steve Bannon didn't exactly get along. They were not friends. They were not friendly. Now, I'll get into that a little bit later. But he was not there. Of course, this rally turned into a riot. And then that's when Roger Stone was like, I got to get out of here. I do not want to be a part of this. I don't want to be implicated. I'm going to have them take pictures of me watching the riot on TV to show that I am not there and I am not involved. And so he also had denounced the violence, and yet on the 5th, the night before, had welcomed it. In fact, in a recorded conversation, as an aide spoke of driving trucks into crowds of racial justice protesters, Stone said, quote, once there's no more election, there's no reason why we can't mix it up. These people are going to get what they've been asking for. So basically violence. Lovely. Lovely. The next day, of course, after the violence, well, after saying, oh, well, this is bad, it's going to make us look bad, he then said it was inevitable, quote, when you can't get a fair and honest judicial opinion, when you can't get a fair and honest transparent election, when your legislative process is constipated by fear and threat. He said, trailing off for a moment before slightly misquoting JFK, quote, those who make peaceful progress impossible make violent revolution inevitable. Ah, so there we are. Now, what this seems to suggest, maybe I'm reading it wrong, who knows, But I think Stone, obviously, in my mind, had advised Trump on how to reject the results of the election, working with members of Trump, of the Trump team and Trump himself to try to overturn the election. Now, he spread the big lie, of course, that of course, led to the riots. And then when the riots happened, tried to cover his ass and had tried to pressure Trump into preemptively pardoning everyone involved. As I said before, riots were only one part of the plot. The real election theft was slated to happen in the states and depended on Mike Pence and certification. And of course, Mike Pence did not go for that. But again, all of this puts Roger Stone right in the middle of this soft coup. Not a good place to be, especially without a preemptive pardon. Now, that of course is assuming, because the January 6th committee, they don't have the power themselves to go and do charges, right? They have to refer these charges to the Justice Department, meaning, of course, Merrick Garland, who, as I mentioned earlier in the story, well, that's he's a bit weak and feckless. And so we don't know if that's going to happen. But from what I'm reading he was absolutely involved and absolutely culpable in the attempt to try to overturn the election. That could be a felony. We'll see what happens. All right. Are we surprised it's the same person that helped Nixon? True. True. We've got one more Roger Stone story. Let's go to that. Okay.
I'm done with this president. I'm going to go public supporting impeachment. I have no choice. He has to go. He has to go. Run again. You'll get your fucking brains beat in.
So that was Roger Stone unloading on former President Donald Trump. Now, look, that was, of course, caught on video, obviously, thanks to the Danish crew that had been following him around to do a documentary. So now Stone had added, and by the way, this is a reason why he was unloading on Trump, saying that Trump had betrayed his friends by not giving them preemptive pardons, and that he deserved to be impeached, and that he had made the single greatest mistake in American history, and even said, quote, "A good long sentence in prison will give him a chance to think about it because the Southern District is coming for him," and he did nothing. That was all on Biden's inauguration day, after Trump had failed to steal the election and was soon going to be impeached for what happened on January 6th. So now the Washington Post was able to get this video from this Danish film crew. There will be a upcoming documentary. And so already it looks pretty bad. Now look, Trump, of course, was not able to hold on to power. That's why he's so mad, why Roger Stone is so mad. And again, didn't do those pardons. Now, this is part of something they called the Stone Plan. So what's the Stone Plan? Well, let me give you the details. Now, the Stone Plan called for Trump to preemptively pardon Republican senators Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, Representative Matt Gaetz, and Jim Jordan, all of whom tried on January 6th to delay or block the certification of Biden's victory. And of course, there are others as well. Now, Stone's plan proposed a pardon for, get this, and this is a very, very interesting link here. You may remember us talking about former Seminole County, Florida tax collector Joel Greenberg, who had been indicted on charges that included the sex trafficking of a child. Yes, that Joel Greenberg. So now, oh look, we're related. Now Roger Stone seems to be connected with what's going on with Representative Matt Gaetz and Joel Greenberg. Interesting, very interesting. Gee, I wonder why you would want those pardons. The previous month, by the way, Greenberg had written to Stone to ask for help securing a pardon. Obviously, as they discussed a potential $250,000 fee, according to the Daily Beast, who had reported this earlier. Now, of course, Stone had been running a little side hustle, and that's why people were offering him money for him to lobby for those pardons. He was selling pardon requests. Now, of course, there was no guarantee that he was going to get these people pardons. I think everybody knew that, but nonetheless, Stone said that he would try and then get their money. In fact, here's a little bit of video of a conversation they had had about these pardons.
Yep. Of course. Well, actually, that is legal. But if I didn't have a really good chance of getting this done, I wouldn't take the money. In all honesty, a lot of people in this business would, but I wouldn't. I got a meeting over there this afternoon. I'm going to have a little bit of input into the final list. It's certainly worth a shot, you know?
I mean, if I couldn't do it, I wouldn't take your money. Other people would. Oh, really? I have a hard time believing that, but okay. All right. So now, look, none of this is actually criminal. It sounds very strange, but apparently taking money to try to lobby for the president for pardons, perfectly legal. Perfectly legal. Very, very strange. But also just incredibly dirty. No guarantee. No guarantee of a pardon. And this is under any president. But when you're dealing with Trump, it's even more of a wild card. In fact, Stone had to remind Donald Trump that he had asked for names of clemency candidates who had been, quote, persecuted because of their support for Trump. Interesting. Now, Stone's pardon wish list also included Michael Sessa and Victor Orena, former members of the Colombo crime family. Yes, the crime family, serving life sentences for murder and racketeering. The best people. The greatest people. Wow. Wow. Their attorney, David Schoen, who has also represented Stone, by the way, Stone told the filmmakers that he had hoped to persuade Trump to hire Schoen to represent him in his Senate impeachment trial on charges of inciting insurrection. Schoen, of course, he took that job. He began advising Trump. And by the way, Stone had said on that, quote, all that pardon stuff is easy. So there's some referrals here. And of course, the hopes that, hey, look, you represent Trump at the trial. Trump gives those people a pardon, the crime family, and everybody works out. Everybody's happy, right? Now, of course, Schoen delivered because you had that impeachment trial. And again, Trump did not get removed. Went through the trial, got acquitted by the Senate, as expected. Schoen did his end of the deal, but no pardons came. No pardons came. Now, Schoen also told Stone in a text exchange on January 18th that Trump had called him again, but was hesitant to commit to those pardons. Quote, he started to go down that road, but stopped, adding that Trump sees that he is stymied by someone else, Sip, referring to White House counsel Pat Cipollone, who would have objected to some of these preemptive pardons. So there actually was somebody in the White House who saw these preemptive pardons for what they were and was like, no, I'm not at all interested in this. You should not do this. And it's because look at how the optics were. Pretty bad. The optics were terrible. Now, Stone's priority, however, was protection for himself as well as his friend Bernard Kerik, who had previously been pardoned by Trump for felonies including tax fraud before he had worked on the effort to overturn the election. So once again, criminals of a feather crime together. The best people, the greatest people. And again, it kind of really shows you how the people around Trump were a lot like, and Trump himself basically was running like a mob boss. And literally, you had people who were trying to get the mob boss to pardon other mobsters. Insane. But anyway, Stone told Schoen later in the same exchange, quote, "At this point, I'd be happy if he pardoned me and Kerik again. Again, we're talking preemptive pardons here. And said that Trump would take no heat for it whatsoever, as this would be the second pardon. But time is running out," Schoen replied. Now, Bernie Kerik told the Post that he did not know about Stone's effort to pardon him preemptively and did not need a pardon because, well, I didn't do anything wrong. What are you talking about? I did nothing wrong. Well, why would I need a pardon? The following afternoon, Schoen sent Stone a link to a new CNN report saying that Trump had been talked out of issuing these pardons. The Stone plan, they said, had failed. He was angry. Schoen complained that this was a free home run that could have saved a lot of loyal lives. Again, talking about the mob stuff, that's loyalty. They value that above all. He also lamented the president's refusal to pardon the former Colombo crime family members, noting that they were, quote, vocal Trump supporters. Who cares about the crime? Murder, they're Trump supporters. They were loyal. They were very loyal. But it wasn't just that pissed off Roger Stone. No. It wasn't just about who didn't get pardoned, but it was about who did. On January 19th, Donald Trump had pardoned none other than Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon was under indictment of federal fraud charges, for the whole stealing Trump supporters' money for their fake Rebuild the Wall project, where he had bragged about stealing their money and buying Lamborghinis and shit on a yacht. Yeah. So, that decision enraged Stone, who called Bannon a quote-unquote grifter scumbag. Oh, I love it when they fight. God, I love it when they fight. And 2 expletives while he was filmed. Stone then ranted to Alejandro about Jared Kushner. So it turns out he also blamed Jared Kushner for the failure of the Stone plan. Apparently, Kushner had a hand in talking Donald Trump out of doing these pardons. So now, here's what he said about Kushner. Quote, "In 2 weeks, he's moving to Miami. He's going to get a beating. He needs to have a beating. It needs to be told, this time we're just beating you. Next time, we're killing you." Now, Alejandro, this is in front of the filmmakers, by the way. So Alejandro's like, whoa, hey, you're just joking, right? You're just joking, right? Here's what Stone said in response to that. Quote, no, it isn't joking. Not joking. It's not a joke. Oof. Stone also told Tom that Scipione was a target and that he would spend money to dox him, which he did not do. He then went after Trump. After ending the call, he turned to the filmmakers, by the way, after the clip that I showed you earlier, and said, quote, "Obviously, if you use any of that, I'll murder you. What a classy guy. Just real stable. What do you expect from this dude? Now, Stone, what's interesting here, and sort of the fallout from this, because this is an interesting story, but what does it mean for the future, right? Well, right now, Roger Stone publicly supports Donald Trump for 2024. Donald Trump's running again. He's like, full support, full support. Now, why is that? I think it's because this guy thinks that he can get something from Donald Trump. That's generally, again, there are two types of people that hang around Trump. There's the people who Trump thinks he can use, right? And then there are those who think that they can use Donald Trump. So now, obviously, Roger Stone had miscalculated when he thought that he could get preemptive pardons, but he didn't miscalculate when he himself had received the first pardon. So obviously, he's making this calculation to think, what can I get from a Donald Trump 2024 victory? Again, assuming that he wins, right? What can he get from it? That's something that only Roger Stone can answer. But you can see how he really feels about Donald Trump and what his goals seem to be. And that's, of course, self-preservation and elevation any way that he can. And so what makes that a little bit more difficult now is that you've got this tape. And if this makes it to Donald Trump, that's going to make things very uncomfortable. A little awkward, perhaps. So that's why he did not want that tape getting out. Unfortunately for them, for him, for Roger Stone, the tape is out. And the documentary will be soon. And so we're going to have to see what happens and what kind of reaction, if Donald Trump even sees this. Because there is a chance that some of the advisors, some people close to Roger Stone and Donald Trump, will find some way to attempt to block this from Trump seeing it. We'll have to see what happens. It should be very, very interesting. You know what? That was actually one of the better stories that I had today. That was really interesting. Very, very interesting stuff. Okay. Anyway, let's move on here. Let's go to Marjorie Taylor Greene, because that's always a fun story. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene she's mad. She is mad that people decided to criticize her for speaking at a white nationalist conference. So that would mean, of course, that she's mad at me. Oh no! I'm really concerned. Now, the Georgia representative then did what all well-adjusted adults do. She took to Twitter and rage tweeted. In fact, here's a couple of them. In defending herself, she said, and this is a speech, and I already showed you the video of what she had talked about and where she was. This was the conference with Nick Fuentes, again, very big white nationalist. She said, I gave the same consistent America First message at every event to everyone, regardless of their identity or ideology. I said nothing wrong and have always denounced racism and anti-Semitism. Always will. Evil, hateful statements are not America First and don't belong. I've always stood up against and denounced anti-Semitism. Really? It says the lady who blamed forest fires in California on Jewish space lasers. Yes, very much so, yes. Now, and that's not all, by the way. She said a lot of very weird anti-Semitic stuff. In 2018, for example, she shared an anti-refugee video, because of course, that claimed that an unholy alliance of leftists, capitalists, wait a minute. That's like oil and water right there when you're mixing leftist and capitalists. Zionist supremacists, once again, leftists. Let me just break this down here for a second, okay, of how unlikely this is. Try to get leftists and capitalists together, well, that's already a very difficult sell. And then you're going to try to get leftists and Zionists as well together? No, not going to happen. Nope. Very, very unlikely. Very unlikely. Wow. Okay, anyway. And the reason I say that, of course, is that if you think leftists will work with either of those groups, leftists don't even like each other. We really don't. There is so much insane infighting on the lefty side. We will fracture over just about anything. And that's why we don't win. Okay, anyway. So let's move on that, right? So she says that this very unlikely alliance got together to promote immigration and miscegenation with the deliberate aim of breeding us out of existence in our own homeland. So now, who is us? Well, obviously, white people. Yeah, of course. Now, what is that? What is the theory here? That's literal great replacement theory. That's an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. A very old one, too. They allege, the conspiracy theory alleges that Jewish people are organizing and orchestrating the mass migration of non-whites into predominantly white countries in order to wipe out the populations. It says that those supporting the refugees are using quote-unquote immigrant pawns to commit the biggest genocide in human history. So she buys into great replacement. Fun. She has also repeated anti-Semitic lies against George Soros. So now George Soros, that claim is that, oh no, Soros during the Holocaust, he helped the Nazis. He turned against his own people and went to the Nazis. He was a child. And again, there's absolutely no evidence that he had worked with Nazis. He's literally Jewish. Come on, dude. Ridiculous. Complete and utter ridiculous lie. And here's the thing, right? So I'm not a fan of George Soros. I don't dislike him. I don't really like him. I don't really care. I'm ambivalent. And here's the thing, right? So he does fund a lot of liberal causes. But he's also a big fan of the right-wing government of Israel. So, you know, not a fan of that. Not a fan of right-wing governments anywhere in the world. And so, as well as that, look, money in politics is a big problem. Doesn't matter where the money is coming from. In this case, Soros donates a lot of money to the Democrats, and so do a lot of other billionaires, right? My point is, I don't want any of their money in there. I don't want Leon Cooperman's money, which goes mainly to Republicans, and some Democrats. I don't want Charles Koch, his money in our political system. I don't want any billionaire money in the political system. Money corrupts. Money corrupts politicians. Get it all out and have publicly funded elections. That's it. I don't want any billionaire donors, and it doesn't matter their political leanings, doesn't matter their ethnicity. No, their money has an outsized influence in our political system. And so let's get it all out. Let's get it all out. Now, that said, Marjorie Taylor Greene has bought into weirdo stuff. Like, you know, QAnon. Now, what's QAnon? It's essentially blood libel. That's what it is. And so now, the thing about that too, at the conference that she had spoken at, right? Well, remember the guy Nicholas Fuentes, the guy who basically led this. He's the leader of the Groypers, right? The Groyper Army, which sounds incredibly creepy. During that time, when before she was speaking, he had praised both Hitler and Putin. So I don't know, man. Sure, but hey, I don't agree. Anti-Semitism. No, I called it out. Oh yes, hate, anti-Semitism, racism. I call it all. Okay, yeah, I call it all out. No, she does not. She has promoted and encouraged it. And by the way, if you're blindly being pro-Israel, that doesn't make you shielded from charges of anti-Semitism. In fact, a lot of members of the far right only support the country, the nation of Israel, because of the weird end times prophecy. In that, of course, all the Jewish people go to Israel. Somehow that makes Jesus come back. Jesus comes and then kills every Jewish person except for the people who convert to Christianity. And so, that's the reason why a lot of these right-wingers, these people who are very far right, support the country of Israel. And there are, of course, other reasons. Perhaps their hatred of Muslims overtakes their hatred of Jewish people, their anti-Semitism. And so there's all sorts of different things like that. But generally, very strange. Okay, now, that said, let's move on. This is the fun part about her rant, okay? She said the media went into hyper mode to rub more fake smears across my face with their lies in the headlines and truth in the last paragraph tactics, but never even asked my district's GOP chair for a comment. They don't care what people think. They just want to control what they think. Oh, yes. They're rubbing the fake smears across my face. She's been bukkakied with fake news. Hey, look, I didn't say that. Did I say that? I didn't say that. No. Strike that from the record. Look, okay. It's very, very weird stuff, okay? The mental imagery from the right wing, it's always unintentionally or maybe intentionally sexual. I don't know. I mean, you listen to it, it's like, oh, yeah, I can't believe they're ramming the gay agenda down our throats. I'm not gonna let you ram it down my throat. Oh my God. Smeared it across my face. All over my face. It's very weirdly, like, the amount of, like, homoerotic conspiracies coming from the right wing. It's very suspicious. They're always talking about the gay agenda, you know? Very, very strange stuff. And of course, Charlie Kirk.
Sexual anarchy.
Yeah, talking about the sexual anarchy. They're sexual anarchy. That's what's going on, because they're smearing it all over our face. And of course, they talk about the pounding, Palin. Oh, they keep pounding the sex. Oh, yes, yeah, They're oddly fixated on what people do in the bedroom. It's very, very telling, yes. They're talking about the trans agenda, the gay agenda, they're focused on that, and what kind of sexual acts that they keep trying to ban. And yet, what's ironic is the stuff that they try to ban, they're the ones that get caught engaging in it in, like, public bathrooms. It's very, very strange. It's very bizarre. And so, I don't know. That's why this comment just really kind of stood out. Very, very strange. I don't know. Maybe it's just because, like, they're so repressed that they can't help but, like, just accidentally verbalize it. Just kind of slips out. What are you gonna do? I don't know. All right. Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Speaking of the gay, I've got a good story here. So this is a good story, sort of. It's both bad and good. So there's a little interesting stuff here. So now, a student who organized a walkout against Florida's Don't Say Gay bill has been suspended indefinitely. So now on Thursday, students in schools across Florida had staged walkouts with hundreds of students to protest a bill that would prohibit primary school educators from engaging in discussions related to sexual orientation or gender identity. It would restrict mention of LGBTQ plus topics in classrooms that they consider to be not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students. It also says that parents will be given greater authority to take legal action against the school districts, against teachers, if they were believed to be in violation of this law. So now, of course, that is ridiculous. It's an attempt, of course, to erase LGBTQ plus people in schools. So now more than 20 schools were identified as participants with hundreds of students walking out. And it was organized by Flagler Palm Coast High School senior Jack Pettox, who organized a walkout. So very, very interesting. I love it. That's amazing. It wasn't just his school, 20 other schools. So look, he organized it online and apparently had a very serious ability to rally people to this wonderful cause. I absolutely love it. In fact, when he was asked about this, he called the bill, quote, homophobic and discriminatory, which it absolutely is, and commended students across the state for pushing back against, quote, regressive legislation like Don't Say Gay. We must let our politicians know that no matter how hard they try, they cannot suppress our identities or silence our voices. He wrote, Gen Z will not stand idly by as our rights are stripped from us. It is now up to you to decide which side of the history you will be on, the side that empowers us or on the side that seeks to erase us. Incredible, just incredible, standing up for, members of the community, standing up in such a way, and able to get, a lot of people involved. That really is very, very amazing. I absolutely love it. Now, of course, he was punished for it, as I mentioned. Let's get to that. Following the protest, Pettox told the News Journal that he had been suspended until further notice, indefinitely, pending a investigation. Investigation, huh? He said that after the rally at his own school, he was escorted off school grounds by administrators and suspended indefinitely, despite having received prior approval from the school to hold the demonstration. According to the student's statement on Twitter, he had been punished for distributing pride flags during the rally, which were confiscated by school officials. Why would they want to confiscate it? Why? Well, he said that I believe this attempt to threaten me and remove me from campus is riddled with homophobia and bigotry. You're silencing a queer student standing up for what he believes in his rights, and you're disciplining him for challenging you on the allowance of pride flags at a gay rally? It's ridiculous. It truly is. Absolutely. He also explained how the school itself was looking to shut them down. In fact, an hour before the protest, the principal, Greg Schwartz, had pulled him aside and voiced his opposition to the pride flags, the over 200 that he had purchased from his own money and brought to school to distribute to other students. He said, quote, he told me I wouldn't be allowed to distribute the flags. He went further to question the intentions of our protest, asking if pride flags were relevant to opposition to the bill. Let's see. You have a homophobic piece of legislation. Okay, and you have a gay student that's fighting back. Yeah, it seems pretty relevant to me. Pretty relevant. What a weirdo question. Weird. And he ignored it. He's like, well, you know what? No, I'm still going to do it. In fact, he said that I decided to move forward and handed the flags to other student organizers for distribution. After that, he was suspended and said that he had informed the principal, and this This is ballsy move, right? Quote, I'm not going to speak with you. I'm going to go talk to a lawyer. Those are some balls right there. I absolutely love it, right? Standing up for the principle, standing up for what is actually correct, what is actually right, for people's rights. I absolutely really like this because, look, the whole purpose of the bill, as I've explained, is just to try to erase LGBTQ plus people from classrooms. That's it. They think, I don't know, maybe they think that, like, talking about the gay is going to make you gay. Well, no, that's not what happens. Talking about gay, learning about the gay does not give you the gay. It's not contagious. You don't get it from sitting on a toilet seat. No, ridiculous, right? No, and by the way, if you ask people who are LGBTQ+, if you ask them when they realized that they were that way, generally they will tend to tell you that it was pretty early in their lives. A lot of them, of course, had to keep it quiet, but I think they'll tell you that they knew. They knew, and that's why it's important, of course, to have these conversations. Sometimes, yes, they know, but haven't figured out how to put it into words, how to explain it. They don't know how to explain it and don't realize this is actually totally fine. It's normal. It's an acceptable part of being a human being. But what DeSantis and the right are trying to do is they want to crush that knowledge because they legitimately think that if we don't talk about this, well, then there's going to be less gay. And that's just not true. There's still going to be the same amount of gay and trans. You're just going to have people that think it's, that hate themselves, that have this internalized hatred of who they actually are. And they are not able to express themselves, to be themselves. So, and of course, the reason that DeSantis is doing this is because it's culture war. It's all about the culture war. It's all about stirring up old hatreds in order to get, and by the way, insecurities and hatreds, to just to try to get support and votes from people who are ignorant and hateful. That's all it is. And so see it for what it is. I'm really glad to see that these students are fighting back. They're doing the right thing. And it makes me think the kids are all right. The kids are all right. All right. Moving on. All right. One last story here for y'all, real quick. Facing what is sure to be a drubbing in the midterm elections, the Biden administration, at least according to a top aide, is teasing some action on student loan debt. So now, I'm skeptical. Y'all are skeptical. I know. So let's get to the details here. This is from Politico, which you know is Establishment 101. So now, here's what they write. The Biden administration is considering again extending the freeze on federal student loan payments and interest for roughly 40 million Americans before it expires at the beginning of May. This is according to Ron Klain, who was talking to podcast Pod Save America. So this was on Thursday. Quote, the president is going to look at what we should do on student loan debt before the pause expires. Or he'll extend the pause. So now that is very interesting here. He added, Joe Biden right now is the only president in history where no one's paid on their student loans for the entirety of his presidency. Adding the White House would make a decision on whether to use executive action to cancel student debt before the payments resume, which of course that latest extension is set to expire May 2nd. Now, if you hear that and you're skeptical, I'm with you. I'm with you. Again, I have myself said that they are not going to cancel student loan debt. They didn't want to cancel 50,000. Obviously, they didn't want to cancel all of them. They didn't even want to cancel 10,000. Now, I think we should cancel all of them. But that said, is another extension possible? Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, why do I say that? Consider the source. This is Ron Klain. This is Joe Biden's top advisor. Do you think Ron Klain would go and say this if he wasn't cleared to say this? This is a major, major thing. And by the way, this is before a midterm election. So keep that timing in mind, okay? No, if you go on a podcast and you say something as part of the Biden administration, that's got some weight to it. And by the way, Politico, in picking up on this, once again, Politico as establishment 101, if you want to get a talking point out, who do you go to? You go to Politico. And by the way, it is telling, when you read an article from the establishment press, you kind of get the framing, right? So now, what's the framing on this? Generally, when you look at something that's a progressive priority, and you go to Politico, their framing determines where the mindset of members of the administration in the establishment are, where they are, where that framing is coming from, right? So I looked at the article. Is there negative framing? No. That's the surprising part. No negative framing in this article. And to me, that signals to me that President Biden or his advisors, they're looking at the polls and they're saying, uh-oh, we might want to do something. Now, a lot of that, of course, is again, you look at the polls, they're kind of disastrous as far as at least domestic policy has gone. And so you think, well, this doesn't look good for the midterms. We haven't delivered anything. The corporate handout, bill that was the infrastructure, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, tried playing that up at the State of the Union. Again, on domestic policy, he's been incredibly weak on this. But foreign policy has actually been kind of surprising. I'm actually kind of in favor of Joe Biden's foreign policy right now. Yeah, at least it's been a lot better than some of the previous administrations. But anyway, so now, here's what they write. Quote, this is the only mention of progressives. And once again, Politico loves to trash progressives. Here's what they wrote. Progressives and some other Democrats have expressed political concerns about sending tens of millions of Americans student loan bills before the midterm elections this fall, especially when prominent members of the party have been promising debt cancellation for years. That is interesting. Very, very interesting, Politico. Actually saying, well, progressives, they've been talking about this and other Democrats, but, it's been prominent members of the Democratic Party. We're really the ones who came up with this debt cancellation idea. Oh, I see where you're going here. Hey, but look, if they want to if they actually do some form of debt cancellation and they want to take credit for it, all right. Hey, I don't care as long as it happens. That's what matters here. But yes, it's been a progressive priority. Progressives have been the ones that are pushing for it. But if the establishment actually wants to adopt this and do something, I'm not going to stop them. I'm not going to stop them at all. So now, getting back to, and by the way, just another note, one of the Democrats who was most against doing something about student loan debt, I will remind you, is Joe Biden. Joe Biden, not in favor of the more robust debt cancellation measures. In fact, look, the Biden administration has been sitting on these memos, which we have pointed out over and over again. Biden has the authority to cancel student loan debt. Any amount that he wants. He could cancel the 10,000 that he promised during the campaign. He could cancel the 50,000 that Elizabeth Warren had been calling for, or he could cancel all of it, which is what Bernie Sanders and other progressives had been calling for. He could do any one of those things. He could. But he hasn't yet. But it looks like he might actually be heading sort of in that direction. Again, I'm not going to say, the victory, yeah, he's definitely going to cancel student loan debt. No. I'm not saying that. I'll believe it when I see it. But this seems to be an indication that they're going in that direction. So now, back to the article here. Klain's remarks, they write, are the clearest public comments from any Biden administration official in recent weeks indicating that the Education Department may further extend the freeze on federal student loan payments and interest, which, again, that's likely what they're going to do. Klain also, for the first time, though, linked the Biden administration's decision-making on whether to cancel student loan debt to the resumption of student loan payments. Again, with Klain linking that definitely means they're having this conversation in the White House right now. In fact, here's Klain playing up the idea that, and again, they're watching the polling on this, nobody having to have paid student loan debt. Quote, right now, people aren't having to pay on their loans. And so I think dealing with the executive branch question, what they've been sitting on, what we should do about that, what his powers are, how much we should do on that, that's something we're going to deal with later on. And of course, there's the but. They're going to deal with it probably after the midterms. So here's what I see happen. I see an extension of the freeze until after the midterms. And then, at best case scenario, maybe the 10,000, maybe the 10,000, and then Democrats will go, mission accomplished, we can now move forward. Now, 10,000 will help, no doubt. It'll take a big chunk out of a lot of student loans, but it's not enough. I mean, why do that when we could cancel everything? Cancel all the student loans. And by the way, that's not the only solution to the problem because, well, that's a minor reprieve. It's kind of like Reagan doing amnesty for immigration. You didn't actually fix the immigration system. You put a Band-Aid on it. It's still broken. And so, yes, if Joe Biden cancels student loan debt, whether it be 10,000, 50,000, or in an extremely unlikely all of it, or any president, by the way, well, you're still going to have the problem of colleges being unaffordable. And until you publicly fund all colleges and universities and make them tuition free, then you're going to end up having this same problem crop up in like another 10, 15 years. So now, of course, are the Democrats, are they going to care about that? Again, that is a possibility that they'll be like, oh, we'll just kick the can down the road. But then again, that's also what freezing the student loan payments now is doing, kicking the can down the road so that they don't have to make that decision and possibly piss off some of the student loan company donors. And that's, of course, a very important piece of this as well. And so, look, again, going back to what I see this, I don't see them canceling a significant portion of student loans. But it could, they'll do the freeze very likely. And the reason, and by the way, the reason I think they're putting up this messaging is that they're doing a bit of an A/B test. Now, you probably heard of what that is. In case you're not familiar, they're testing the audience to see what polls better. So it's kind of like a live focus group, we could cancel student loan debt or put out the freeze. And so whatever polls better, they will likely do if they're concerned enough about what happens in the midterms. But as far as this is going, look, this Ron Klain coming out and saying this, that is significant. That is real. And so it's really, it shows that the administration is concerned enough about this topic and more, more likely the polling on this and what's going to happen in the midterms, well, that they're floating this idea and they're going to see what happens and see if they can use this to avoid a Republican wipeout. We'll see what happens, but I think this is very encouraging, at least on some relief. We'll see. We'll see. He ran on canceling debt. He owes us all. No, I absolutely agree with that. Totally. Again, if you ask me, he should cancel it all and then make schools tuition free. 100%. But again, I'm just trying to give you the reality of the situation and what we could hope for. What would be the best case scenario? All right. Now, yes, and by the way, some of you bring up a good question, whether or not it's just marketing for the midterms. Oh, we'll do it after the midterms. And look, part of that, yeah, no, that's interesting. That is a, interesting question, a very big possibility that it could be a bait and switch situation. Again, I don't know, but I do see a freeze at least for a short period of time. Because if they don't do at least something on that, it will be a wipeout. It will be a wipeout. Nothing will fundamentally change? Yes. Again, I agree with that. I do think nothing will fundamentally change. And understand that if you forgive a certain portion of student loan debt, be it $10,000 or $50,000, that still doesn't fundamentally change the system. That just kicks the can down the road. And so he's essentially kept that promise and forgiven that a little bit of that debt enough, I think, in their calculation, their political calculation, to avoid a complete wipeout in the midterms. So, again, interesting stuff. All right, so let's read some super chats before we head out. New season of Picard is out. First episode is perfect. I'm going to watch that. Jiraiya1286, thank you for becoming a new member. You can become a member by hitting the join button below on YouTube here. There's other ways, of course, to become a member. You can become a member on Facebook, too, by hitting subscribe. And, of course, you can also become a follower on Twitch. And so you can subscribe to us as well. So lots of different ways that you can help the show, that you can help the stream. And, of course, there is our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. So more here. Jonathan Leiter says, this old lefty queer wants to thank you for all the great work you do. Keep it up, please. You young folks in Florida are giving me hope again. Hey, young people, love it. I love what they're doing. Jonathan Leiter also says, dear Joe Biden, want to win this midterm. Declassify weed. Yes. Cancel a bunch of student loan debt. Yes. Democrats then have issues to win on. Mic drop. True. Very true. Gabby Mathis says Biden needs to step up and keep his promises. Absolutely. And Koru, thank you for being a member. And you're welcome. So, all right. Go over to Twitch here. Jayhawker41 the Ball Dragon, thank you for resubbing for a month to tier 1. 5 months. Yes. Thank you. It helps us out greatly. Let's see. Now. Oh boy. My son just got a student loan after he'd been kicked out of school for not getting his student loan to pay them. Isn't that ridiculous? That is ridiculous. Wow. Okay. Am I getting any money from Facebook? Brian Taylor says he's leaving for YouTube because they cut his revenue. A little bit. Not very much from Facebook, though, unfortunately. They've been having a lot of weirdo stuff going on. So as far as technical issues and errors and monetization issues. So yeah, any way that you can help the show, I'd appreciate it. All right. And that's it. Massively over time, so let's do a raid. Probably not there, though. Yeah. You know what? We haven't raided into Galaxy Brain for a while. So it's Benjamin Carollo. She's awesome. Very based. Excellent, topics and stuff. Very in-depth show. So we're going to raid into her and check her out. To everybody else, thank you. Have a great weekend. Love you all. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, Nation. We'll see you on Monday.
I'm a fatty fat though.
That's like my new type.
Big massive dump.
They want to make you drink Starbucks every day from now until forever.
Disappointed!
You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.
Obama.